Greetings from the beautiful foothills of California's Sierra Nevada mountains, and welcome to another adventure into the world of connecting children with the natural world. You are listening to the only podcast that is completely dedicated to bringing childhood back outside. I am your host, Kenny Ballantyne, and today we will be having an awesome chat with the good people over at the Arbor Day Farm in Nebraska. Did you know that there is a theme park completely dedicated to trees? How can nature build resilient families, and just what is an outdoor classroom? All of that and more in this week's edition of Nature Kids Radio.
Oh, give me land, lots of land under starry skies above. Don't fence me in. Let me ride through the wide open country that I love. Don't fence me in. Let me be by myself in the evening breeze. Listen to the murmur of the cottonwood trees. Send me out forever, but I ask you please, don't fence me in.
Hey there, and thanks for tuning in to today's program. Our special guests today are Susie Worth and Jesse Ebers of the Arbor Day Foundation, and they will be joining us from the beautiful Arbor Day Farm in Nebraska. But before we get into that, I just wanted to mention that Nature Kids Radio is a production of the Nature Kids Institute. If you are new to the program, please hop on over to naturekidsinstitute.org for a free online course on connecting kids with nature, as well as videos, blogs, and other resources. That being said, let's go ahead and get started. Susie and Jesse, welcome to the show. I was wondering if each of you could start us off by briefly introducing yourselves.
So my name is Susie Worth. I serve as Outreach Director with the Arbor Day Foundation and Dimensions Educational Research Foundation's Collaborative Nature Explore program. And I have been an educator working with children and families for over 30 years. And I am passionate about connecting children with nature because I have seen such transformation in spaces and in children over the years when they are authentically connecting with the natural world.
My name is Jesse Ebers, and I am the tours coordinator here at Arbor Day Farm. So my job, I have the opportunity to recruit and work with groups that come out here to visit us and work with the education material they're receiving, whether it is children or adults. I work with both. I am relatively new to the Arbor Day Foundation. I have only been here a year. I just graduated with my master's degree last year, and I am incredibly passionate about getting kids out in nature because I grew up being out in nature. I'm a biologist. My degrees are in biology, so I am very, very passionate about that kind of work. And I decided throughout my education experiences that I wanted to be working with kids directly and helping them get back outside and enjoying it as much as I do.
Okay, great. Well, then let's just go ahead and start off from the top. For an outsider who's just hearing about you for the first time, what exactly is the Arbor Day Farm and Tree of Adventure? I think most people would be surprised to know what's going on out there in Nebraska.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, right here on the east coast of Nebraska, we're located right along the Missouri River, just south of Omaha. Nebraska City, our claim to fame is we are the home of Arbor Day. So Arbor Day Farm is a 260-acre National Historic Landmark, and it is owned and operated by the Arbor Day Foundation. The property was part of Arbor Day founder J. Sterling Morton's agricultural estate many years ago, and today our site includes apple and peach orchards, vineyards, a hazelnut research field, agroforestry demonstrations. So here at Arbor Day Farm, our visitors can learn about the best methods of tree planting and tree care and conservation. On the property, we have Lead Lodge and Conference Center. It's a beautiful Adirondack-style lodge where people from all over the world gather to focus on issues facing trees and the environment. And it also serves as a gathering site for all kinds of special occasions, family reunions. We have thousands of visitors who travel to our site every year. And in 2002, 2003, 2004, we added the tree adventure to the visitor experience here on our property. I'm going to let Jesse tell you a little bit about that.
So the tree adventure part of the property is what we consider to be the nature attraction part of it. We consider the tree adventure to be the face of the Arbor Day Foundation, where our guests who are coming to Arbor Day Farm can experience the mission of the foundation firsthand and have that hands-on experience of being outside, learning about trees, and learning about nature and enjoying all of that. We provide unique opportunities for our guests to be outside and to learn and to just enjoy being outside and learning about trees.
Right. Cool. You know, in the early phases of making Nature Kids, I was at Disneyland, and after being so immersed in connecting kids with nature, I was at Disneyland and I felt like, this is like the opposite of everything I want to be doing right now. And I thought, wouldn't it be cool if there was a nature theme park? And then someone told me there is. And I said, really? And I said, yeah, you got to check out Tree Adventure. So, if I'm a kid living nearby or even traveling from out of the area, why should I be excited about Tree Adventure? What happens there?
I'll go ahead and answer that one.
Sure.
So at the Tree Adventure, we have a lot of really different, unique opportunities for our children and families to experience. We have multiple hiking trails that some are accessible for, all walks of life, while others immerse you much further into the forest as you follow the creek. They can experience life at the top of the trees from the canopy and have different perspective of that by climbing our 50-foot tree house. They get to walk along a little bit of history as they follow a creek that Lewis and Clark actually walked down when they were doing their travels across the country. As Susie mentioned earlier, we are also an orchard, and so we have all sorts of fruit trees that children can see firsthand where their food is actually coming from and learn about how they don't actually just come from a grocery store. And it just gives kids a chance and families to be outside, to be in the fresh air, to stretch their legs, to run, to yell, to just have a wonderful time and be active and moving. We have a giant rope spider web that all ages of children, adults included, love to climb to the top of. We have a limb tunnel. We have specifically one other really great activity to do is our Nature Explorer classrooms that we have. And so I'll let Susie kind of go into those.
Well, I guess I might just add that there was a real intentionality when we thought about creating this kind of experience for children and families, for our visitors here. So we really had it with Lead Lodge Conference Center. We really provided opportunities for real rich learning, but we really wanted to provide the opportunity in a very fun, engaging way, connect our visitors and our children and families with trees and the land. And so I've been with the Arbor Day Foundation for almost 27 years working here at Arbor Day Farm, and I just have had the incredible opportunity to work with a wonderful team of people to design and implement the Tree Adventure. And the goal of the Treehouse Trail, which is part of the Tree Adventure, is really to slow children and families down, to help them focus on the beautiful, intricate details of the natural world, not only just the visual sense, but the smells, the sounds, the tactile, physical elements of the natural world, and even sometimes the tastes of nature. We have a preservation orchard where people can sample antique apple varieties as those apples come in season. But we have all these interactive elements along the trails that support that multi-sensory engagement. So I guess I might add that after 2 years of the Tree Adventure being open, we realized we really needed to provide additional experiences for our youngest visitors and their families. So we partnered with Dimensions Educational Research Foundation to create the Nature Explorer classroom, and that space has really been transformational in the experiences we provide for children and families, especially in terms of authentically connecting with the natural world.
Awesome. I can't imagine many places in existence right now whose purpose is to slow people down. That is
We work very hard at that here.
Yeah, that is beautiful. Okay, so you have this amazing place and you have people coming through it all the time, and a great percentage of those are children. And I'm sure many of them are experiencing things that perhaps they're not having an opportunity to experience at home or at school or during the regular play hours. Is that your experience?
Yes, absolutely.
Yes.
What kind of, and this may be a little off outline, but what kind of reactions are you seeing from kids who maybe are they surprised? Are they delighted? Are they afraid?
I would say a mix of all of those reactions. Kenny, I know you've talked about this many times, but the landscape of children's lives has truly changed in the last 20 years. Children just aren't having those foundational experiences with the natural world that happened just, as part of growing up in years past. Children, many children, not all children, but many children who come to us are more plugged in than ever before, but far less connected to nature. So too often schoolyards may consist of one plastic climbing structure on an artificial surface with nature, if it exists at all, kind of a distant view outside a fence. So here at the Tree Adventure, and particularly in the Nature Explorer classroom, we want to re-engage children with the natural world in a foundational, authentic, and really multi-sensory way. Mm-hmm. And I think, Jesse, you can really talk about the change in children's attitudes that we see, and especially where we have children who've had almost no connection with the natural world previously.
Yeah. Especially during the summer, we have really wonderful opportunities out here where we are able to have field trips. We have a lot of field trips that come to see us. And in the summer particularly, we get groups who are from very urban part of Omaha, Nebraska, which is the largest city in the state, where these kids either don't have any experience outside, or unfortunately it's not safe for them to be outside in some of their neighborhoods. And these kids are provided with an opportunity to come down to Arbor Day Farm and to experience being outside, where we've actually had kids hop off the bus, look around and say, I didn't even know there were this many trees. They have no idea what the world is like outside of their neighborhood and outside of that cement area that they're in. Just this summer, we had a little kid who was walking on our extended trail with one of our nature interpreters and looked up with this sense of wonder and said, is this the woods? They just they can't even grasp that concept. And so it's really thrilling for us when we work with the kids at the Tree Adventure is to see that transformation. And we do see it even in a day. We'll get kids who will jump off the bus in grass and be upset that their shoes are getting dirty or, are not,
or damp with
dew. And then by the end of the day, they're thinking creatively, they're expressing immense curiosity, and they're even asking really thought-provoking questions that you're pretty impressed are coming from a little kid. And so that's one of the most rewarding things about having the children come out here, is to actually see, even in a day, see a little bit of a transformation in the children who come out here.
Yeah. And Kenny, I think it's interesting. I think Jesse and I can provide kind of a multi-generational perspective. As I mentioned, I've worked with children and families here at Arbor Day Farm for 27 years. And in that time, I've seen a huge shift in the children and in many of the parents who come for visits. Years ago, they would recognize natural elements, even if they didn't have the scientific name for them. But today, we'll have children, even fifth graders, who will step off a bus, pick up a pine cone or an acorn, and ask us what it is. I grew up in that free range childhood where almost all of my free time was spent outdoors playing in nature, making forts, wading in streams, climbing trees. And all of those nature loose parts were my toys. So it's hard for me to even wrap my mind around the fact that children today are not having even those basic foundational connections to things like trees and pine cones and acorns. And that has really been one of the wonderful things to see. That the Nature Explorer classroom is so critical, and it's really transformed how we provide programming for our visiting children, particularly those coming to us for tours. So whenever possible, we allow children to play and explore in the outdoor classroom before we pick them up for a tour or kind of an interpreted guided experience. And when we do that, we find their attention is so much more focused. Their questions are so much richer, their engagement is so much higher, and it's really honoring their opportunity for their questions, their sense of wonder. And I think that has really been foundational in how we provide some of the experiences and programming here at the Tree Adventure and at Arbor Day Farm.
Yeah. And one other thing, going off of what Susie said, to add to that, we do notice, and it's not with all the children that come here, but we do notice with some that there is kind of this new fear of nature or unknown. There's a disconnect now, as Susie mentioned, between children and being outside and being in nature, and often the unknown is what you fear, and so that's now turned into fearing nature. And so by giving children the opportunities to play in the classrooms and explore on their own and not be told don't go there or no, they are able to kind of get rid of that fear, and it kind of disappears, and we see curiosity and creativity start to replace it, rather than being afraid of what they're going to see outside.
Awesome. Well, I feel like you two have a very unique perspective on connecting kids with nature, simply because of the volume of kids that you get to see coming through your programming each year. And a lot of my listeners are people who maybe work in park system or outdoor recreation and are struggling to try to reach young people and kids and try to get them involved in their programs, or they're educators who want to get nature into their curriculum but really don't know where to start. And I thought, you two might have some expertise just because of how many kids you've seen have these transformational experiences. Of what kind of advice could you guys give from what you've learned at the Tree Adventure and at the Arbor Day Farm?
I guess I would say, particularly as it relates to parents and sometimes even teachers, don't feel like you have to know everything. It's not about, in those early years, it's not about knowing the names of every plant or animal. It's, for parents especially, it's about getting outside with your child. Again, it's slowing down. It's helping foster children's observations and that sense of wonder which is just really innate in our children. I love the quote from Rachel Carson from her book, The Sense of Wonder. If a child is to keep alive his or her inborn sense of wonder, he needs the companionship of at least one adult who can share it, rediscovering with him the joy, excitement, and mystery of the world we live in. And that's really what it's all about. Based on Dimensions Foundation research and field testing, one resource that I might suggest for both educators and for families is the Nature Explorer Families Club Kit. And it includes research-based, field-tested resources that really are designed to help organize a family's club at a school or at an organization or in a neighborhood, or just simply to download activities that really are what I maybe call catalyst activities that a parent can do outdoors in nature very simply with their child. And that kit is free for people to download at www.natureexplorer.org. And Jesse, you probably have some additional thoughts.
Yeah, going off exactly what Susie said about looking into just simple catalyst activities, I would say don't feel like you have to go on a huge camping trip, go river rafting, go back in the backcountry. As wonderful and fun as those activities are, you don't have to do something big for kids to have a positive experience in nature. It can be something as simple as walking around your neighborhood, looking at a tree and observing all the life that is occurring on and inside that tree, or watching a pigeon or a robin, peck at the ground and wondering, why are they doing that? What are they trying to find? What are they eating? Evoking those questions from just observations. And you can do that with your child, and you can also notice what your child is noticing and really kind of work off of that. What we as adults may think pigeons and starlings and those types of birds are pests, but to a child, it may be the only wildlife they see, and that may be absolutely fascinating to them. So if you're listening and slowing down and working with your child, you'll be able to have those experiences with them.
So I might tell a quick story,
Sure.
Kenny, and you can see if it feels like a fit with your podcast or not. But as an example of Nature Explore Families Club activity, one of our Nature Explore classroom sites in Texas tells the story that in their space they had a mother who came in and said, Eli, my son, has been collecting rocks, putting them in his pockets. They're going through the washer and the dryer, and I'm really tired of it. I want you to tell Eli that he can't collect stones anymore. And Charlotte, the director of this site, said, well, have you talked to Eli about that? He's so intentional about, the rocks that he's collecting. And the mother said, yeah, I've talked to him. I've said, can't do it anymore. And I want you to tell Eli the same thing. So Charlotte knew this wasn't the teachable moment. And so over the weekend, she happened to go to a garage sale and she got one of those pill sorter boxes for like a nickel. And so on Monday, she gave that to Eli. And so during the week, Eli very thoughtfully, Eli was maybe 4 or 5 years old. So Eli is putting little stones in. And then during the week, taking them out and putting new stones in. And then on Friday, Charlotte sent all the children in the program home with just that simple activity to go outside with their parents and share what was beautiful to them and have their parents share what in nature was beautiful to that parent. And so along with that, she sent home that little box of rocks. So Monday morning, Mom is back at school. Only this time Mom says, oh my goodness, I never knew. And Mom says, Eli pulls out the first rock and said, look, Mom, it's the color of my favorite shirt. Pulled out another rock. Look, Mom, it's got a stripe all the way around. Look, Mom, when you look through this rock, you can see a rainbow. So that was a transformational, very simple activity that really fostered that connection that maybe wouldn't have happened otherwise. The mother said then that she and Eli really started to display some of the rocks that he collected. She saw something in him that she hadn't recognized before. And she told him about the flowers that were planted by the back door that reminded her of growing up or going to her grandparents' house, that those were flowers that her grandmother had planted. So sometimes just rich conversations that can happen seamlessly outdoors, that don't require lots of, as Jesse said, going to a wild or distant place, but really can happen in their own backyard. So just an example of some of those things that I might encourage educators and families to do in a very simplistic way.
Right. Yeah, that's a beautiful story. I love that. But I think this would be a good time then to move on to outdoor classrooms, because you've mentioned them several times throughout our talk so far, and some people might not know exactly what you mean by that. What is an outdoor classroom?
Well, that's a great question. Some people may think of an outdoor classroom as being a space where all the plants are labeled and are not to be touched, places solely for science investigation. And so I would kind of distinguish that Nature Explore outdoor classrooms are really much, much more than that. These are outdoor classrooms that support whatever curriculum a school, or an early childhood center, or a nature center might be using. It just lets parents and educators take that learning outdoors in a nature-based environment. And research has gone into the design of these Nature Explore classrooms. They have diverse areas for child engagement and child-initiated play that really is designed to support children through all the different ways they learn. So the Nature Explorer outdoor classrooms have areas for art and areas for music that are inspired by nature. So we see children, really incorporating that purposeful movement as they see squirrels scamper up a tree or trees swaying in the wind. They have areas where children can build with blocks or construct with larger natural materials. So these kinds of experiences, as you think about it maybe from an educator's perspective, support STEM or STEAM in really learning in authentic ways. There are areas for active physical play, climbing, balance, purposeful movement, building body confidence and body competence, especially in the younger years. And then there are quiet nurturing spaces and cozy nature-rich pathways where children can self-regulate. So it really is a really intentional design because children aren't having these kind of wild experiences. It really becomes up to us as parents and educators and community members to create spaces where children can have these experiences with the natural world where they're spending their time.
Susie, I'd wonder what you would say to a teacher who perhaps might be thinking, well, that all sounds really idyllic and beautiful when you have a place like the Arbor Day Farm to build it at, but my school is, in the middle of the city and all we have is a bunch of blacktop, and, that just doesn't sound like it could possibly be a reality for me.
And it absolutely can. We have worked with sites in all kinds of settings. We've worked with the Los Angeles Unified School District. You can bring nature in to all kinds of settings in very creative ways. It doesn't have to be a big established space with beautiful mature trees. You can add trees to almost any landscape and bring in planter boxes and gardening experiences. Very creative ways that people have provided these foundational experiences for children in all kinds of settings, from very inner city spaces to rural environments in spaces large and small. So if folks who are listening are interested in seeing some of these diverse examples of spaces, you can go to natureexplore.org on the website and look at the certified Nature Explorer classrooms all over the country and find examples that really might be very relevant to wherever it is you call home.
Cool. Let's take that a step further then. Let's just say I'm looking out my window at my play space, and I have maybe just a little lot with some asphalt. Maybe there's some grass and a slide, and I go, wow, what can I do here? Here's my canvas. What's a first step that I could do today to bring some more meaningful experiences and nature connection into the lives of these children?
Well, one resource I might suggest would be the Learning with Nature idea book. That is a book that was created in a collaboration with early childhood educators, landscape architects, really based on research and design of spaces, that really has suggestions for working in all kinds of spaces and all kinds of settings and getting ideas that feel right for you. So if you do have a space where it is mostly asphalt, think about using planter boxes creatively to define areas where you can provide these experiences, still bringing in nature's loose parts that support that creative, imaginative play, things like tree cookies or sections of stumps that children can use for building. So it's really thinking about those open-ended experiences and those rich, diverse natural materials that you have, both that give children a sense of place and space, also really important when you think about creating these outdoor classrooms, as well as opportunities to see plant materials with different fragrances and bloom times, things that bring pollinators close by. So again, there really are lots of ways you can get started. Thinking about, I guess, looking at examples of spaces. We, through our work with Nature Explore, we have support in a variety of different ways. We have design teams that can come to a site and work with the education team to help design a space, or people can use the Learning with Nature idea book to really see what feels right for them. We know that for these spaces to be successful, they not only need to be well designed, but staff really needs to have training or understanding of how these spaces support child engagement and rich learning, and how that really is like doubling, tripling the size of your classroom by simply opening the doors and using the outdoors for discovery and exploration. And then, if as we think about certified classrooms, so it's that well-designed outdoor space, staff development, and then the third leg of that stool for certification is parent engagement, because that's when it really becomes, it kind of sticks with the child and with the family when parents are also engaged in getting outdoors and connecting their children with the natural world. So I think it's really not just one step, it's really looking at it comprehensively and thinking about how you can transform your space, transform teaching practice, and then really support that engagement with parents and bring all of those folks into the conversation as you're thinking about creating these spaces, again, in all kinds of settings. But gardening, if you're thinking about one first step, gardening is a great place to start, because there's just so much research on how that benefits children and can lead to healthy eating. But providing that rich mix of experiences outdoors for children, our research has shown to be really, really important. And even if those experiences are done in a very simplistic way, it's more important to have a rich mix of kind of nature experiences outdoors done simplistically than only a few done in a very, in a much more elaborate way.
Susie, you were speaking about resources. Do you want to talk about the Leadership Institute at all? Or do we think that's a little too farther along the path?
Oh no, I mean, I think that's a great suggestion. That if folks are really wanting to extend their learning, take skills and take information back to their teams as they think, again, comprehensively about how this might support all the learning that they want to provide for children. We have our Leadership Institute every July, actually here at Arbor Day Farm in Nebraska City, and we have folks come from all over the country to get ideas and share ideas about best practice.
Mm-hmm. I had the privilege of attending one of the institute this year, and it's amazing how, first of all, how many people it brings in, and how, what I really took away from it is that every individual who was there was at a different point in their, essentially, in their work towards creating or certifying an outdoor classroom. You had people who didn't have one yet but were really interested and were just starting from the basics, to people like the Arbor Day Farm representatives like myself, who we have a very established certified classroom that is doing very well, to other people who maybe came in and said, we have the classroom, but it needs some improvement. It was a wonderful resource, because you got to talk to people who were at every single stage of what Susie just covered. And there's just some wonderful resources that come with it to take back to your teams.
Right. Yeah, I saw the pictures from your most recent one. It looked like you guys had a lot of fun.
Yes.
We did. And again, just that sense of inspiration when you're learning with and from each other is really wonderful.
And it even includes some of your own playtime in the classroom.
It does. Yes, it sure
so
does.
So that kind of adds to the fun.
And one of the things that took place is that then we are also sharing, current research. So in the Leadership Institute that took place year before last, we talked about the results of our sustainability study, where we looked at outdoor classrooms around the country that were growing and thriving and compared them with outdoor classrooms around the country that were struggling, and we looked at, what are the common characteristics that might weave through those sites that were really thriving. And so out of that, we really have put together a Keeping It Growing. We have a book called Keeping It Growing that really informs practice. So if you're thinking about creating a space, what's really important? How do you plan from the very beginning to work with staff, to design your space, to engage parents? So, I can't describe it all in this short podcast, but really, thinking ahead as you are about to create a space. So it really is a strong program from the very, very beginning. So that was something we shared 2 years ago. This last year, we had one of our researchers who is doing a post-occupancy study, and he talked about, where there was, great engagement in terms of children's use of the space as these established spaces have, incorporated nature as part of their daily programming in whatever setting they are in with children. So that was really, really interesting. So that's also part of the Institute. You're really hearing the latest research that's taking place around the country.
Very cool. That sounds like a great event. I'm wondering now if we could segue a little bit into not just what nature can do for kids, but for entire families. I once heard you, Susie, speak about nature building resilient families, and this is largely the reason why I've focused my whole career around connecting kids with nature, is because of what it did to mine. How can nature help to build stronger families?
Well, I think that has been one of the things that has really been so rewarding personally to me in the transformations that I've seen, not only in the lives of children, but really in the lives of families when they have these opportunities to unplug, put down their cell phone for just a little bit, and to step outside the door and spend time in nature with their children. There is so much research beyond what the research that Dimensions Educational Research Foundation has done, which has been on children's skill development, but so much research on how spending time in green space really reduces cognitive fatigue. That is true for children, and it is very true for adults. So we have worked with all kinds of groups, including domestic violence shelters, where families or probably a parent and children go when their lives have really been infused with violence, and they are intentionally creating these nature-based spaces in those settings just, again, to help families heal. So it is really building those resilient families by simply allowing them to be in green spaces where they can unwind, kind of reconnect with their children in really authentic ways. We've worked with the Air Force, and they're looking at how these more nature-rich spaces can help build resilient families as they look at kind of the stresses that they might have when a loved one might be deployed, or frequent moves impact the lives of children and families. So again, just multiple ways that these spaces really are nurturing and can help build that resilience in those families.
And something that I would touch on from a experience standpoint of what we see every day at the Tree Adventure, Susie has actually already touched on it briefly, but we see a lot of engagement among families at the Tree Adventure and in the classrooms. We see parents that are very heavily involved in the play and the creativity that the kids are experiencing here in the classrooms. They are active with their children. They're climbing to the top of our giant spider web. They're asking questions. They're thinking. They're showing that curiosity. They're building. They're playing with the messy materials and the different nature parts. And we've actually had guests come and comment to us about how amazing it is to see these families so actively engaged together. And so it's really a wonderful thing for us to be able to see firsthand every day how it can get the kids and the parents, as Susie said, to unplug and to play and be thinking creatively together.
Yeah, that's a great point, Jesse. And I think we do that kind of subtly and also intentionally. We have, just a message that says, please participate in the play of your child. And we also provide photos at the different areas where there are just those visual clues or cues where parents will see photos of parents engaged with their children in use of those spaces. That just kind of fosters ideas for how those spaces can be used and how parents might support and scaffold their children's experiences in many different ways. So there are lots of creative ways to do it, and I think Jesse talked about this, but we have an active tour program where we provide facilitated experiences, but a huge part of our visitorship here at Arbor Day Farm and especially at the Tree Adventure, are families who come on their own. And so it really is that rich opportunity to observe their play and their interaction with children over time.
Awesome. Well, I am a big believer that a child does not get to choose their childhood. That a childhood is created by, for the most part, us, by the parents, by the educators, and by the mentors in a child's life, the people who make the decisions that create the world that kid's going to grow up in. So largely, this battle to get kids outside and reconnected to the natural world is going to be decided by us. That being said, I'm wondering if each of you could make the case for why someone should care, for why someone should take the time and make the effort to get kids outside. Because we live in a world that is highly stressed, that is highly taxed on time and resources. There's a lot of people telling you what's the best things you should be doing with kids, every hour of the day. And most of those things are not slow and outside and connected to things real. And so I was wondering if you could make a case to the parents, educators, and mentors in children's lives out there, what would that case be? And I'll let each of you take a turn.
Well, I think that's beautifully stated, Kenny. It's really so true. For me, I guess my perspective would be, I have seen the transformation. I hear back from sites who have created these spaces how it has transformed their teaching experience, how it has transformed their lives as parents. So I think that authentic voice from folks and who have created these spaces and are saying it has just really allowed them to do what they went into teaching to do, and that is really to support that learning and that rich engagement from children as, again, child-initiated play, scaffolding what children show us or tell us that they understand, and how we can build on those experiences in a really natural way. And we're hearing from sites all over the country who are talking about how behaviors have been transformed. So as I mentioned, our research has been on skill development. We can show that when children spend time in these nature-based spaces, they are learning. There is absolutely learning and skill development taking place. But then the sites that are writing back to us are saying, we're seeing a huge transformation. There's a decrease in behavior problems outdoors. Just really those authentic voices that are saying this is really working and really is meaningful for us.
Absolutely. I think Susie really, really well stated the research and the places where the importance of having kids outside are being so clearly shown. And as she mentioned, the trying to think of the word I'm looking for, the having that response of all of this positive impact of all the work that Nature Explore has done. And I've been trying to think of the best way for me to articulate this from my perspective, because I've always been a kid outside, and I've always been obsessed with nature and biology and that kind of thing. And part of when I first got hired here was trying to think of, okay, how can I transfer my excitement to kids and help them develop that excitement and love and passion without forcing it on them and that kind of thing. And so I've been kind of trying to think of how I wanted to answer this question. And one of the things that keeps popping in my head is taking it from the child's perspective. I think that children naturally are curious, and I keep using the word curiosity, but I think they are naturally curious little human beings, and they naturally want to ask questions and want to pick things up, want to touch things, want to get a little dirty, and are maybe told no and not to do that. But by just taking a step back and letting your child pick up that rock or that snail or that leaf and think about it, observe it, ask questions about it, notice the beauty in it, like this example of the little boy and his rocks with the different stripes, you are already fostering a child who's going to love the earth, be a future steward for the earth, and also be all the other things that Susie mentioned in all the research that has already shown, with their behavioral issues, with less stress, with being artistic and creative, all of those wonderful positive aspects and learning experiences that come with that can just start with just taking a step back and letting your child take a little bit of control outside and do maybe what they want to do. We clean up the classrooms at night, so certain pieces are not let out, and you will be amazed how creative they get out there with where they take certain pieces from different parts of it and what they build and what they design, and how they'll take things from the messy material station and take it over to the treehouse and just create these different worlds out there. And it's just amazing to see it, and I'm not even seeing them do it in action sometimes. I'm just cleaning up what they did afterwards. So
I love that.
Yeah, and I might add that our research shows how important those loose parts, kind of those nature's loose parts, are to that engagement, that recognition of the beauty and the detail in the natural world. That is an integral element to these outdoor spaces.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Okay. Well, guys, I think we have covered everything in a beautiful, wonderful, exciting way.
Kenny, I might have one more thing. Can I add one more thing?
You absolutely can. I'm thrilled with everything so far. So go ahead.
Some of the sites that we have worked with around the country are in nature centers, or, for example, U.S. Fish and Wildlife refuges. And so they are creating these Nature Explore classrooms really as what I might call incubator spaces. So these are opportunities really in much the same way that they serve for us here at Arbor Day Farm to transition children and families to these are air quotes, but to the wilder environments. One of our sites, Shaw Nature Reserve, outside of St. Louis, talks about the huge increase in visitorship with families with young children when they created their Nature Explore classroom. And for the first couple weeks, young families with young children were coming, and they were maybe using just that outdoor classroom because it was kind of secure and families felt comfortable there. But then they reported that those families started exploring the trails, things that they really maybe wouldn't have had the comfort or the confidence to do if they hadn't had kind of that transitional experience. And so visitorship, membership increased as those families had that opportunity to explore and really engage in ways that were comfortable for them. And there'd be families who'd walk into the visitor center and they'd say, "Oh my gosh, today we walked the wildflower trail." It was like that was really that first nature adventure that maybe not only those parents, not only those children, but those parents had as well. So, there can be a real impact of these spaces in all kinds of different settings.
Very good. Well, guys, thank you so much for taking the time to do this with me today. I really appreciate it.
Oh, thank
you.
Kenny.
And
It's just always lovely to visit with you.
We appreciate it.
thank you. I can't wait to get out to the tree adventure with my own kids. Hopefully this next coming summer or something like
Oh,
that.
wouldn't that be
Come
fun?
see us.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you'll let us know,
if
won't
you're
you?
coming out.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay.
Okay.
Sounds great.
Thanks.
You.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
That's it for today. Next week, we will be talking about adventure playgrounds, International Mud Day, and nature play spaces with the great Rusty Keeler. Thank you for listening, and remember that the greatest gifts we can offer our children are waiting just outside the door. Until next time, I'm Kenny Ballantyne, and I will see you outside.
Oh, give me land, lots of land under starry skies above. Don't fence me in. Let me ride through the wide open country that I love. Don't fence me in. Let me be by myself in the evening breeze. Listen to the murmur of the cottonwood trees. Send me out forever, but I ask you please, don't fence me in. Just turn me loose, let me straddle my old saddle.